Hello everyone, this is Duke Sayre and this is the Man Club podcast. This is part 2 with Dan Rice on tribe building, especially in Facebook groups. He'll be going in even deeper on how to keep your Facebook group buoyant and giving you long-term success, keeping them engaged, and ultimately how to think about and feel into what it is your group needs at any given time so you can ultimately build a tribe of raving fans and followers. Look forward to you guys listening. Please do connect with social media. Let us know how you got on. Any more questions you have, look forward to seeing them. And of course, if you're not in the Facebook Man Club group, just look up Man Club on Facebook and I'll see you on the other side.
So what's a good maybe a basic starting point for someone with a new group, someone listening to this, because obviously everyone in the internet marketing community and the business community is raving about groups. I got so many questions for you, Dan, but for now, what's a good kind of basic strategy then from doing their content organically at the same time, testing at the same time, having a plan for the year?
Yeah, I mean, I had to put together a video series to make this, to explain what the basic strategy was. But what I would say is what you need to do is you need to look at the platforms that you are talking to these people on. So you're obviously going to have your lead platform, which is going to be your Facebook.
Yeah.
But then I would also have at least one or two other places that you're going to feed people into it from.
Yeah. Can you give some examples?
So you could have Twitter, LinkedIn, You could even have personal networking events, these kind of things. And so what I would suggest is setting up a spreadsheet and simply writing down the days of the week, and then make a plan to turn up into your main one 5 times a week.
Yeah.
If that's your Facebook group. Then you want to be knowing what you're going to talk about 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And then in your second and third, I would say you probably want to turn up in your second at least 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And your third at least twice a week.
Yeah.
And so all of the ideas from those are going to be, you want to just build your authority.
Yeah.
Now, there are different rules as to different platforms as to how often you post and all these kind of things. But yes, I mean, if it's Twitter, then if you turn up only 3 times a day, then nobody's going to really notice you.
Yeah.
So it makes it slightly different. But that would be my basic strategy would be just make sure that you've got every week planned out like that. So on the Friday before you stop for the weekend or whatever, make sure that you've got it as a Friday afternoon. It doesn't matter if you're working all weekend, make sure that you do it on a Friday afternoon. It's just a mindset thing. When other people are shutting down, then you want to make sure that you're ready before you shut down on a Friday.
And here's a question for you, Dan. I know you must get asked this all the time, maybe even sick of hearing this, but I'd love the listeners to get your view on this. In terms of being yourself, right? Or in terms of how you write your content in your group, are you again then thinking of those? So you just said 5 times a week in your group. Are you thinking there may be a different style of content? Let's just say over 20 pieces of content, 4 pieces of content per avatar? Or are you just being slapdash 100% yourself, however twisted, however dark, however blasphemous that may show up? Like, what's some good advice on that? Or, and if you get some negative reaction in your group, let's just say, because I'll be honest, Dan, I'm very dark, I'm very twisted. I can swear quite a lot. If let's just say I put some stuff in my group and I had a negative reaction, which I have had before, is that something to worry about? Do you just think, fuck it, I'm just going to carry on as I am? Like, what's some of your advice around that, Dan? Especially as you're kind of sitting on a panel of a lot of other groups and you've seen a lot of different people and how they show up.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain things which are no-nos from the leaders. I have seen. I've witnessed a couple of. In the most extreme example, where there seemed to be an almost ritualistic idea that when you arrived in the group, everyone would be as horrible as possible to you, and it was only if you survived that you would actually be given any credit.
It was hilarious.
And it's just like, and they said, "Oh, I can't figure out why people aren't staying." It's kind of like, well, you're kind of, it's not even like you're doing it we're trying to be constructive way. It's literally we are just saying that you are an awful human being, and it's kind of like, well, hang on, your competitor is saying, "Oh no, I realise that you're in a difficult position right now," and it was a very fragile set of people as well going in, and it's kind of like, if you're going to appeal to a very niche set of people, and so maybe that works for them. But if you're looking to grow your group, then you're not going to grow it with your target market if directly contradicts what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And so the way that I gather a lot of research on not just what I'm doing, but what competitors are doing, and doing things like, I don't know how often you do this sort of thing, but if you look up book reviews on Amazon, and you look around the sort of things that your audience read, just ignore the 5 stars, ignore the 1 and 2 stars. If you look at the 3 and 4 stars, then you get the sort of the comments, the language, the kind of things that people are talking about, the kind of things that people like. And if you base your ideas and your plans and what you're going to talk about on a mixture of that and what your 5 key people are wanting and talking about, then you can't really go a lot wrong.
Nice.
And so when you add those two to being honest and being yourself and with your own spin and your own flavor, that's when you're going to get a really strong group. And that's when you're going to attract the right kind of people. It's going to build the right kind of community and the right sort of culture that you're actually looking for. And then you're just going to go from strength to strength.
I love that. So what's next, Dan? You've got your content mapped out. As a result, your membership site is mapped out. You know what you're doing week in, week out. Maybe you've got a couple of launches or products or adventures, whatever else. What else should be thinking of when it comes to your community, when it comes to your tribe?
It really depends on what the core single biggest goal is that you want your community to achieve. Now, it might be you basically in terms of my course and things, how I divide it up is there's got to be something that is what you want selfishly to achieve from it, and then you've got to have what you want your A players to achieve, and then you've got what you want everyone else to achieve. And so you're kind of looking at it, well, what do I want and what am I selfishly trying to get, and what do they want? And so what you've got to do is make sure that every now and again you're actually checking in to make sure that you are actually guiding towards those goals. Now, it's going to be very different. A lot of my experience comes with charities. And so their goal is obviously going to be very different to somebody who is setting up a small business marketing forum, where they're going to be looking to try and get their next clients, really. A lot of people are going to be setting up Facebook groups for. Whereas when you're a charity, it could be something that is quite different to that, because we're either looking, some of it's going to be raising money, but most of the time it's actually going to be more about raising awareness and getting more people interested and joining in and participating and talking about things, especially in the sort of the kind of charities where they're dealing with things where not a lot of press coverage goes to them. A Facebook group is very powerful in that sense, because it can be, well, I'm talking about this and people I know are talking about this, so why aren't you talking about this?
So as I listen to you now, Dan, I'll be honest, and this sounds really wanky, right? But I'm like, I'm just thinking about Man Club, right? Selfishly, when you say it's a bit of selfishly what I want to achieve, and even when you say what the A players will achieve, when you say A players, do you mean those kind of five avatars, or do you mean the people?
Yeah, the 5 people at the top.
Yeah, okay. So the 5 people at the top. So here's the thing, Dan. I'm sure a lot of people maybe have a similar kind of wanky answer to what I'm saying. I am just in a position where I'm like, I just want to shift as many men as possible, give them a space where they can just be themselves and do cool shit. How do you break that down to kind of like, this is what I want to get out of it selfishly, this is what everyone else needs to get, this is what the 5 people need to get? How can you start to do that? Because I'm sure a lot of people, I think it'd be even worse, and kind of, I guess maybe business groups, you'd have like a monetary aim, but how can you break that down?
You've got to look down as to why you want that to be the case. In some cases, it will be because for instance, I've got an element of charity about one of my enterprises, and the idea is that that's how I believe charities and more charities should work is working proactively on trying to solve problems, because I think not every charity can be a reactionary charity. Some of them have to be proactive, or otherwise we're just going to keep on solving another problem. And so the idea of that is that I kind of want that to be a change in the world. That's a world that I want to see. And so I can't make 1 million people to act the way that I want, but I can, if I can make a few people act in the way that I want, then I'm going to change the world that I live in. That world. And so when you're looking at it going, well, actually, I just want this to be a result for other people, what you're actually saying is, well, I want to be in a world where that result is truer for more people.
Okay, nice.
I look at it a bit more selfishly in that, like, well, I just want to know that that's happened. I want to be part of that happening. And it's kind of like, if if you're more concerned about it, the fact that it's happening for other people, then you kind of look at your place in trying to make it happen as, it doesn't matter if I'm really involved in this, I'm just going to help make it happen. And when you're in that position, it's really easy to actually get your A players in, because as soon as you talk to somebody, they can see that you're not just doing it for your own goal.
Yeah.
I mean, well, they won't always, but more often than not, they will see that you're not just doing it for your own goal. And so you'll actually probably have similar goals to them. And so they'll be like, well, that's why I got into this industry. So, I'm more than happy to team up with you or to participate in your group, or to,
that's already happened. I've already had kind of people pledge allegiance to me and just say, Duke, whatever it is you need in 2017 with Man Club, you can rely on me. And I'm like, cool. And they, when I think about them, they are all, and when you kind of said the spread, I think there's only probably one person I need a bit more on the adventure side of things for Man Club in that 5-person avatar. And then what about everyone else then? So everyone else is just me just saying as many men shifted as possible, and that's kind of is that strong enough? And what's the reason for having that extra caveat for people?
Okay, because the reason you don't really focus your whole group around that whole idea of like how to serve everyone, but you kind of want to keep it in mind, because if for some reason your 5A players just don't represent the group at all,
yeah,
you kind of want to have it in the back of your mind that you're going to have to add in something else that is going to make it suit the rest of the group.
Yeah.
Because the 5A player strategy is very, very strong,
yeah,
but its weakness is the fact that if you get a huge group and those 5A players are just your 5 favorite people rather than the 5 best people that you've selected, you've also got to be aware that you're human. You're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
You're probably going to not pick the 5 perfect people first time round.
Yeah.
The best groups that I'm helping with, I can think of one that's kept their original 5 people as their A players. It morphs over time because you realise, oh, we've made a mistake. That person wasn't really as willing to participate, or that person, it was more cloaks and daggers and we didn't really realise that they had a different agenda or something like that. So you're going to make a mistake in at least one of them. So you've just got to kind of appreciate that that's going to happen, and try and mitigate for that and work out that. And so that's why if you're then looking at it saying, well, my A players want to do this, but the rest of my group are all, say in your sense, the A players are all just bothered about being open and honest and just doing whatever, and saying whatever. If that really riles up the rest of the group, you've got to think, well, what is it that's actually going to benefit the rest of the group? That we're going to then turn the conversation slightly on its head and say, right, we're going to do a little bit more on adventure because that's what's going to get everyone else talking. And then because of you doing that, you're going to discover the new A players are going to emerge from that, because you'll see, wow, this slight tweak on the subject means that people have just felt, oh, this is more about me. This is more of a group for me. So you've always got to be aware that that's a possibility.
Yeah, nice. So Dan, I'm going to give you some curveball questions now. What's like in the last 6 months? What's the best thing that you've learned around groups, or that you've realised that's really kind of like blown the old rules, the old handbook out of the water?
It's sometimes not to be ashamed to try something.
Okay.
So I hang around with a few people who are what you would consider growth hackers.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much it's massively different to how I've always operated throughout my life and career. And so what I've discovered really is by taking in a lot of content that these guys produce, they produce lots. Yeah. And they have lots of tactics and they do lots of talks because this is how they get their popularity.
Yeah.
And I've learned some fantastic things from people who are almost night and day difference to me.
Yeah.
One thing in common, that we're basically in business and in marketing, and that's about as close as we can get to being similar. And so it's to take on board that you can learn from these people and you can pick up things, because applying the lessons from them to my own way of thinking has actually been excellent for me.
And are there, obviously, you do your thing with, helping businesses and helping groups and everything else. If someone wanted to get started, and, with Christmas around the corner, although guys, this will be released in January, are there any kind of books or courses you recommend people can get their teeth into, or do you have like a free online resource that people can check out? Or what do you recommend is some of the things that people can start getting into to expand their awareness around this?
Okay. In terms of my, I've got a freebie course called In the Beginning, and I've actually set up a page for this podcast, and people can visit that. Okay. So,
give the URL.
yeah. Okay. So it's leadingfromanywhere.com/Duke.
Okay. Awesome.
And then what that is basically just it's a 5-day series that I've put into one group before as a public entity. But now I'm sort of releasing it to the wider world. And what you'll do what that page will take you to is basically to get the email notification of when that comes out.
Yeah.
So it's basically being edited at the moment and sharpened up. So it will be out. I mean, it will be out very shortly. So.
Okay. Awesome.
That would be the place to start, I would say. But obviously I'm a little bit biased on that. So if you wanted to actually look at resources above and beyond where I am, I would say Tribes by Seth Godin is probably the number one book to look at. And I would say on a general business perspective, I would look at Chet Holmes, The Ultimate Sales Machine.
Yeah.
Those two books are phenomenal. And yeah, I've got physical copies and Kindle copies so that I can have them all the time.
Yeah, nice. Well, they're kind of those books that every time you read them, you get something new from.
Yeah, exactly. And I try to make sure that I read a chapter of either every couple of days just to sort of keep it on rotation and keep refreshing myself on them. So yeah, so it's a good place to start.
What would you say to anyone, Dan, who is feeling maybe some perturbation, some fear, or maybe even they've got a group which has died, you know, and they just kind of like, do you know what? I feel like I'm just crap at this. Like, I don't understand what's going on. Why aren't people into me, into my group, into my content? What are some of the things that you kind of put forward that they could try, or maybe even there's some mindset stuff they need to work on that would help shift, you know, other than what you've already kind of given us, like you think you see people making a mistake around?
Yeah, I mean, what I would work on first is becoming a great follower. And so working out what that actually entails and what you want your followers to be like, going out and being that in groups, seeing if that relates to anyone.
Yeah.
So if you then go into other similar groups of other things that you're interested in, not even related to your sort of target idea, but if you go into there and it doesn't resonate with anyone in other groups, then you've got to kind of think, well, hang on a minute, what is it that I'm doing that doesn't really work? Lots of people kind of have this belief that they see a very popular group and they just think, well, I can just copy that and then I will be successful. And it's complete rubbish. A lot of people will copy every idea of a particular guru and then wonder why their group doesn't do as well as theirs. Well, for instance, for starters, you've got about 1% of their membership. For seconds, a lot of your membership are also their membership and know exactly what you're doing because you've got similar interests. And so, you know, it's pretty obvious that they're going to like similar things. And what they tend to do is just to do sort of spammy tactics and think, right, well, I'll combine my spammy tactics with just copying someone.
Yeah.
Oh, and why isn't it working?
Yeah.
So you've got to learn to be a great follower. That would be the number one thing, because if you don't know how to be a great follower yourself, then you're really going to struggle when it comes to finding people who are great followers, because you won't have a clue what they look like. Yeah,
100%. And what are you currently working on then? What are you currently excited about, inspired about? How's 2017 looking for you? What are you moving more into?
Well, 2017 is basically going to see me do a lot more speaking gigs and getting on podcasts and doing guest appearances in people's groups.
Yeah, nice.
So I basically set up 2 video series which cover sort of 5 days of challenges.
Yeah.
And so when you introduce that into somebody else's group, it highlights you as the specialist of interest to people. Yeah. And so I've got 2 video series. One of them's on automation and one of them's on building a tribe.
Yeah.
Facebook groups. And so those are going to be my 2 sort of key areas of development.
And your automation stuff, is that around tribe stuff as well, and how to automate content and things like that?
It's more of a generalist one around sort of social media and things.
Yeah, nice.
It's kind of it begins at the process of mapping out a process and how to do that properly. Mm-hmm. And then it ends with how to set up an evergreen content machine and how to do things like use if this then that to make the most of your business. And it talks about things that even down to sort of schedulers and things like that.
Yeah.
So when I introduce that to a group, it's obviously very popular because it means that it's basically how to shortcut your way to things that are just repetitive. And it even does a little bit of coverage on how to deal with outsourcers, because that's when you can't do it yourself, and you can't automate it, then that's where you're kind of looking.
Yeah.
So that's where the whole idea of mapping out the process is very beneficial to people.
Okay, no, and do you have any kind of other than those kind of free products? Well, what are you if people wanted to get hold of you, what would be the best way of getting in touch with you?
Okay, there are two ways that I would say. My website is leadingfromanywhere.com, and if you just write dan@leadingfromanywhere.com, that's how you get in contact with me personally.
Okay, awesome. Dan, it's been an absolute pleasure, dude. I appreciate your time. I think for all of you guys listening, I know a lot of you, just from who I personally know, who are in Man Club, 80% of you are self-employed, have your own businesses, wherever else. And I've just experienced myself, and I'm sure, Dan, you'll back this up. Actually, Dan, do you want to just give us, we probably should have done this at the beginning, but do you want to just give us like a lay of the land, why having a Facebook group, what it does for you that is so, that is amplifies the business and your positioning and everything else, why it does that?
Okay, the reason it's so good is because it allows you to have a platform where you are the point of authority. And by establishing the fact that you not only have good content yourself, but you also have great connections who also know how to produce great content and who are also valuable, then it shows that you actually know what you're on about enough to be a sort of like a niche celebrity. And so it's sort of like the key person of influence. If you've ever read that by, it's kind of a bit like that. It's kind of establishing where you are and who you know. Is how you prove how good you are. So as long as you're hanging around with the right people and saying the right things, then that's the early indication that people can see. And because Facebook is so easy for people to access, they access it all the time, even when they, lots of people will say, oh, I don't go on Facebook much. But I mean, I'm employed to be on Facebook all the time, so I can see you're always on Facebook.
Yeah. I think a lot of people as well, they say they don't go on Facebook much, but shit, man, like you were saying earlier on, there's a lot of lurkers, every day, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, they're scrolling the news feed. And, I know, Dan, I've got a group, Self-Awareness and Energy with Duke. I'll be honest, I don't do any of this stuff right, because my intention, it was never any intention behind it. I just wanted a place that people can go. I just put content, I answer questions via video format and whatever else. But like you're saying, it just, people introduce me as, oh yeah, Duke's got this group, by the way. People are adding people ask questions. And what happens is I go to events, I go to birthday parties, whatever, and people are like, Duke, man, you got to know, you're getting a lot of brownie points, all that stuff you're putting out there. And I'm like, who are you? So it is like, it's just a great positioning tool. And I think, like you said, it just really highlights, I think the main thing is it highlights you as an expert. If you've got the audacity to have your own group, continually just churn out content, people on some subconscious level or whatever perceive you to be a certain way, for you to even have the audacity to be putting your stuff out there, especially if it's fresh content and not found anywhere else. So that's what I found. And then, for me, any of you thinking about having a group, honestly, guys, I've had so many customers come through my group, come through Facebook, and I don't do any of the kind of stuff that some people do where I'm, hassling people and openly commenting. You can tell that people are just kind of circling around them to get them as a customer. It's just putting stuff out there and then people get in contact with you, Yeah,
definitely.
Add to that, Dan?
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I would add to that is that if you learn how to do this properly, then when you are going into other people's groups as well, then you can also get yourself established quite well and actually be known to people who you might not otherwise be able to reach.
Yeah.
Because of obviously I've got quite good at this. Yeah. There are people who will be speaking on stage and then they will they'll spot me in the audience and they'll come and talk to me afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can imagine how much of an authority that makes you look all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Somebody who's got 200 people just, sat there glued watching to what they're doing.
Yeah.
And then the first person they walk up to is you, then instantly that's obviously a lot of kudos for that.
Yeah.
So that's only happened 2 or 3 times to me, but that's enough to be, you get a good sort of 5-6 people coming to ask, oh, who are you? Why did he come and speak to you? Why did he come and speak to you? And they quickly figure out that, well, yeah, it's because I'm the person that's helped make, I'm one of the A players in their group.
Yeah.
And the A players are the most valuable people in the group. So it's like, they know you, they have to know you. Otherwise they're going to struggle. So yeah, so I would say that would be the second way of looking at it.
Yeah, awesome. Dan, absolutely lovely to have you on the show. And, you know, it's cool because this is the first episode. And, you know, I'm one of those people, if someone tells me it's possible and go and do it, I'll just go and do it. And Man Club, I'm feeling it, you know, so I'm just going to go and do it and just implement these things that you've said, and we'll see what happens, and people can get to see the result in a month or two's time. What would you say, Dan? Because this would be cool to kind of get your predictions. And actually, I want to ask you something as well, because I see this a lot. What are your thoughts on adding people to your group? Do you feel you should just add a few people, having put a post on your personal profile saying, "Hey guys, I'm doing this," and then add a few people, or just add the 500 max people and then just see what happens after that? What's your thoughts on that kind of side of things?
I've done both ways with groups, and the strongest groups are grown on personally connecting with people and telling them that you're going to add them in. Yeah. It's slightly different in the sense of I think there are a good core of people from you having run events and people you've spoken to that they'll know exactly what it is straight away. Yeah. If people aren't going to know exactly what it is straight away, don't add them in. Yeah. Because they will probably leave, and then what will probably happen is because they've left, then you'll try and invite them in again, and then you've lost them forever.
That's it, done. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you add someone in multiple times without ever explaining, then that's going to really lose them. I would worry most about getting your 5A players and then anyone else that knows about the sort of the lay of the land, and then working at it from there, and not worrying about just chucking in lots of numbers. That's how I deal with this individual scenario. It's not the case for every scenario, but in this scenario, I would say it's all about making that personal connection, and you feel safe and honest. So yeah, that's the only way you can do it.
So I'm just being open here, Dan. So at the minute I've got, this group has been going, I don't know how long, maybe a month and a bit. And it is literally just all the people we personally know who've been to the events, whatever else. I've got 218 people in the group. So if you're a speculating man, a betting man, if I was to implement all these things that you're saying, how quickly would you anticipate maybe in 2 months this group to grow organically, literally from like next week, doing all these things exactly as you say, 5 times a week, interacting, everything kind of planned, getting those 5A players, all the rest of it? What would you anticipate would happen?
If you executed it, my strategies perfectly, you probably wouldn't add any more than about 50 people.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, in the way that I would say to do this. That's not to say, because depending on how interactive these people are and how likely they are to recommend other people, I mean, I've seen them go. I mean, I had one group where I banned 400 people, and went around kicking ass a bit, and then it grew by about 3,000 in a matter of a few weeks. So I wasn't telling anyone that I was even doing that. I was pretending I wasn't even involved. Yeah. So it can be done very, very quickly, even by accident. You just got to you've got to catch a wave, and then it will grow massively, organically, quickly. But I would say on average, if you grow it by about 50 people and you sort out the strength and the quality of the people, then actually I think that would be stronger.
Awesome. So guys, hope you enjoyed this episode, first on Man Club episodes. Please do go to iTunes, rate and review it. Tell people about this podcast because it'll help us get the news out there. Look, help us raise consciousness of men and, give men a safe space to actually be who they truly are. And actually, share what people like Dan, who, Dan is one of those guys kind of behind the scenes currently, really. But guys, we haven't talked about this, but, he is in coverts and responsible and helping out some really big players, so what he's saying, take heed. If you have a message, if you have a group, you have a business currently, you're thinking of setting your own group, honestly, just implement these simple strategies. I've seen plenty of people in the industry. It's the simple stuff you just do over and over and over, and that's what they've done. It's no, quick button push hack bullshit, £3,000 course that suddenly just gets you there in an instant. It is doing this laborious stuff, and having a tribe is one of the best ways you can do it. Make sure you head on over to leadingfromanywhere.com/Dukes. You can get that video series explaining more. And if you have any more questions, make sure you get in the Facebook group, Man Club. It's just Man Club, simple to search and find out. Dan, do you have a Facebook group at all that they can get in?
Yes, I do. It's actually Leading From Anywhere.
Okay, awesome.
So look at my own cardinal rule.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so look up Leading From Anywhere and jump in that group if you have more questions as well. And ask Dan. I've seen Dan around a lot. He's always very giving with his time and answering questions, whatever else. And of course, if you're kind of at that place where you're like, actually, I just need to get this ramped up and, really get this locked down and want some extra help and you're still a bit lost, get in touch with him on Facebook. Dan Rice or at leadingfromanywhere.com. And he will help you out and do his thing that he does best. Dan, it's been an absolute pleasure, dude.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And thanks for being on the first episode. And I look forward to checking in with you and letting you know how it's all kind of unraveled as a result.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Awesome, dude.
This has been Duke Said. This has been the Mag Club podcast. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Please, please, please do let us know how you found this episode. Head on over to iTunes. Give us a rating. Give us some stars. Give us a review. Let other people know what you learned from this. And, of course, connect with myself and Dan on social media. Comment. Let us know what you got out of it. Any more questions you have, feel free to get in touch. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.